The Prince by Niccolò Machiavelli.
Niccol Machiavelli, an Italian diplomat and political thinker, wrote The Prince in the 16th century as a manual for aspiring princes and kings. The prince's overarching message is that using immoral measures to further a prince's goals, such as glory and survival, can be justified. A version with the Latin title De Principatibus appears to have been distributed in 1513, according to Machiavelli's correspondence. 5 years after Machiavelli's passing, in 1532, the printed edition was finally released. However, much before that, in fact since the prince's first appearance in manuscript, the dispute had swirled concerning his writings, according to the Medici Pope Clement VII. Over the years, several comments have been made on every chapter of The Prince. The framework of the piece is clear and was mostly suggested by the author. This can be summed up as an introduction letter from Machiavelli to the intended reader, Lorenzo de' Medici, Duke of Urbino, is included in the work's first section.
The topic is New Princedoms, chapters 1 and 2. The Prince begins by outlining the topic it will cover.
The word state, Italian state, which can also mean status, is used by Machiavelli in the opening phrase to refer to, in an apolitical manner, all types of organization of supreme political power, whether republican or princely. This statement and others like it in Machiavelli's works are thought to be particularly significant in the discussion of how the word state came to have this modern type of connotation during the Renaissance. The Prince was widely regarded as being very original, even though it was written to appear as though it were a typical piece in the mirrors for the Prince's style. This is partial because it was written in Italian, a language that was more widely spoken after the publication of Dante's Divine Comedy and other Renaissance works of literature, rather than Latin. By pointing out that he has previously written about republics, a reference to the discourses on Livy, Machiavelli claims that The Prince will be about princedoms. However, he frequently incorporates discussion of republics into this work, effectively treating them as a type of princedom with many advantages. He contrasts between hereditary established princedoms and new princedoms, which are more significant and less conventional. In Chapter 2, he swiftly discusses hereditary princedoms, claiming that they are considerably simpler to rule. For such a sovereign, it is reasonable to suppose that his subjects will be inherently well disposed towards him unless unusual vices cause him to be detested. The uniqueness in chapters 1 and 2 is the intentional purpose of dealing with a new ruler who will need to establish himself in defiance of habit, according to Gilbert, 1938. 19-23, who contrasted this claim with conventional offers of guidance for rulers. These works were often reserved for hereditary princes. He believes Tacitus and his personal experiences may have had an impact on Machiavelli. This classification of regime types is also un-Aristotelian and appears to be more straightforward than the conventional one, which divides regimes into those ruled by a single monarch, an oligarchy, or by the people, in a democracy, as found, for instance, in Aristotle's Politics. Additionally, Machiavelli disregards the traditional differences between just and evil forms, such as between monarchy and tyranny. The Prince is sometimes cited as one of the founding texts of modern philosophy, particularly contemporary political philosophy, which emphasizes the need for effective truth over abstract ideals. Another noteworthy aspect of it is that it directly opposes the prevalent Catholic and scholastic ideas of the day, particularly those that dealt with politics and ethics. Since The Prince's 1532 publication, readers' opinions of both the book's content and Niccol Machiavelli's persona have ranged widely. Machiavelli was well known for writing plays, poetry, and histories in his day, including a widely produced popular comedy. He was a highly esteemed statesman who represented Florence on international missions and produced reports that were praised for their quality and flair. The tone and content of Machiavelli's political advice, particularly in The Prince, as well as his criticism of Christianity, led the Catholic Church to condemn him. By the 17th century, the name Machiavelli had acquired the connotation of evil cunning, which it continues to do today. The same duality exists among contemporary readers of Machiavelli, who both acknowledge him as a founder of the field of political science and shudder at the cruel ideals he frequently espouses. The Prince is the source of Machiavelli's creative modernist and cynical political ideologies. Despite being relatively brief, the book is the most well-known of Machiavelli's writings and the one most responsible for popularizing the term Machiavellian as an insult. It even played a part in the words politics and politician acquiring a bad reputation in modern Western nations. It has a similar topic matter with the considerably longer discourses on Livy, which was written a short while afterward. Another lesser-known work by Machiavelli that has been likened to The Prince is the Life of Castruccio Castracani, which uses examples of near-contemporary Italians who committed crimes for politics. In his work, Machiavelli departs from the Western school of political theory that came before him. The theorists of this tradition, who began with Plato and Aristotle, were interested in concerns of justice and human happiness as well as the structure of the ideal state. The Prince is, up until the last chapter, a startlingly straightforward instruction book for leaders looking to either found and maintain control of the new state or seize and dominate one that already exists.
Machiavelli bases his political program on real-world instances rather than moral or intellectual precepts.
Machiavelli uses the examples of well-known historical and modern leaders, both successful and unsuccessful, to show what a prince should or shouldn't do to achieve his goals.
Machiavelli makes it clear that he wants to provide an objective examination of real-world human behavior and the use of power throughout The Prince. Regarding a prince's behavior toward his subjects, Machiavelli states, "I have felt it proper to describe things as they are in a true truth, rather than as they are imagined." p. 49. It is arguable if Machiavelli's analysis of social life and human nature is accurate. Is Machiavelli merely impartial and clear-sighted, or is he offering false reasons for those who crave power's worst impulses? The outcomes of deeds are what is important in The Prince.
All are permitted, indeed, encouraged if they help the prince achieve and maintain power.
This includes murder, inciting civil strife, buying fictitious allegiances, and betrayal.
Since the state is required to provide for the people's security, peace, and order, Machiavelli believed that such activities are justified to preserve the state.
He juxtaposes the prince's aspirations with the public's desire for law and order, considering the two as complementary.
Maybe they are, or maybe this equation is just a method for those who want the power to justify injustices to serve their interests.
There are still unanswered problems regarding whether or not the aims achieve the means that Machiavelli advocates for in The Prince.
The advice in The Prince is supported by Machiavelli's assessment of the Italy of his time: leaderless, lawless, crushed, despoiled, torn, overrun. p. 83. He ends his book with an exhortation to liberate Italy from the barbarians as a result of this.
A new prince is needed, according to Machiavelli, to institute a new order. p.
82, which would restore harmony and peace to the frequently at-arms city-states of the Italian peninsula. A kind of governance that would offer citizens a voice is something Machiavelli seems more open to in this section of The Prince and some of his later writings. In his discourses, Machiavelli describes the ideal form of government as a republic that promotes open debate among parties with divergent viewpoints.
Thus, Machiavelli creates the conditions for his readers to engage in an ongoing conversation. Is he better regarded as a proponent of harmony and peace who is interested in giving sound, actionable advice? Is he a shrewd businessman who supports and comforts potential despots? Does The Prince's final chapter, which defines moral and political aims, support the recommendations made in the earlier chapters? These issues are bound to persist as long as Machiavelli's book holds a prominent position in contemporary political theory. How was the video? Did you enjoy it?
Post your feedback in our comments section below and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more updates.